Your mind is the place where the greatest wars are fought, and yet it is also the place where the greatest victories are won. Before your life can change, before your habits can shift, before your destiny can rise to the level it was designed to reach, your mind has to be transformed. The enemy is not always out there. Most of the time, the enemy is in here, in the thoughts you choose to entertain, in the lies you allow to take root, in the fears you water until they grow so big they overshadow your faith. That's why I tell you, your mind is not just a tool, it's a battlefield, and if you don't learn to guard it, if you don't learn to fight for it, everything else in your life will be at risk. See, people can take your possessions, they can walk out of your life, they can deny you opportunities, but as long as you still control your mind, you can rebuild. But if you lose the battle in your mind, even when the door of opportunity opens, you won't step through it. Even when the blessing comes, you'll sabotage it. Even when freedom is handed to you, you'll still live in chains because you haven't yet shifted your mindset. Think about it. Every major transformation that has ever happened in your life began with a thought. You may not even realize it, but a single thought planted in your spirit has the power to shift your entire destiny. That's why the struggle is so intense. That's why distractions come so heavy. That's why negativity surrounds you. Because if the wrong thought settles in your mind, it can delay your purpose for years. But if the right thought takes root, it can accelerate you beyond your wildest imagination. You cannot rise higher than your thinking. A small mind will suffocate a great destiny. A limited perspective will choke out an unlimited calling. Some of you are asking for God to enlarge your territory, but the truth is, you haven't enlarged your mindset. You want a greater future, but you are still thinking like your past. You want new doors to open, but you are still carrying the keys from yesterday. You can't win today's battle with yesterday's thinking. Your mind must shift because the battleground is in your thoughts. Now let me paint this for you. Imagine two people standing side by side. Both of them face the same challenge. Both of them face the same storm. But one looks at it and says, "This is the end of me. I can't survive this." The other looks at the same storm and says, "This is the beginning of me. I was born for this moment." The storm doesn't change, the mindset does. And the one who shifts their mind wins the battle before it even begins. This is why the greatest chains are invisible. The greatest prisons don't have bars. They have lies. Lies that say you're not good enough. Lies that whisper you'll never make it. Lies that remind you of every mistake you ever made until you forget that you're still standing, still breathing, still carrying a purpose bigger than your pain. And if you don't recognize that your mind is the battleground, you'll accept those lies as truth. But hear me, you don't have to accept every thought that walks into your head. Just because a thought knocks on the door of your mind doesn't mean you have to let it sit at the table. Some thoughts are trespassers, and you've got to evict them. You've got to stand guard at the gates of your mind and say, "If this thought doesn't align with my destiny, it cannot live here. If this thought doesn't agree with my purpose, it has no place here. If this thought tears me down instead of building me up, I will not feed it another second. Because the truth is this, whatever you feed in your mind will grow, and whatever you starve will die. If you feed your doubts, they will grow strong and choke your faith. If you feed your fears, they will become giants that mock your courage. But if you feed your faith, if you feed your hope, if you feed your vision, they will grow so strong that even when trouble comes, you'll stand tall. Even when darkness surrounds you, you'll still shine. Even when the battleground shakes, you'll remain unshaken. The mind is the seedbed of transformation. That's why when people change on the outside without changing on the inside, it never lasts. That's why people can move to a new city, but carry the same old thinking and repeat the same cycles. That's why someone can leave a broken relationship but walk straight into another broken one, because their mind never shifted. Your life will always rise to the level of your mindset. And let me go deeper here. The greatest attack against you is not against your job, not against your body, not even against your finances. It's against your mind, because if your mind is defeated, everything else will eventually collapse. That's why depression doesn't start in your wallet. It starts in your mind. That's why fear doesn't live in your environment. It lives in your thoughts. That's why success is not just about skill or talent. It's about perspective. The battleground is not out there. The battleground is in here. So how do you win this battle? You win it by shifting your thoughts, by taking control of what you allow to live in your mental space, by realizing that you don't have to think everything you feel. You don't have to meditate on everything you see. You don't have to agree with every voice that speaks into your life. You win by choosing to replace fear with faith, choosing to replace doubt with determination, choosing to replace despair with vision, choosing to replace small thinking with big dreams. Let me tell you, it only takes one shift in your mind to create a ripple effect in every area of your life. When you shift your mindset from I can't to I will, your actions follow. When you shift from I'm not enough to I am more than enough, your behavior changes. When you shift from this is impossible to all things are possible, you unlock doors that were always there but never opened for you before. But it won't be easy, because every battle has resistance. The moment you try to shift your thoughts, every negative voice from your past will try to pull you back. Every mistake you've ever made will try to replay in your head. Every insecurity will rise up and scream, "Who do you think you are?" But that's when you have to fight. That's when you remind yourself, I am not my past. I am not my failure. I am not my fear. I am what I believe, and I choose to believe greater. You've got to wake up every day and fight for your mind like it's your greatest treasure, because it is. Protect it like your future depends on it, because it does. Train it like your destiny rests on it, because it does. You cannot win in life if you lose in your head. You cannot conquer the world if you've already been conquered by your thoughts. But the good news is this: victory is possible, renewal is possible, transformation is possible. If you shift your mindset, you shift your life. If you win the battle in your thoughts, you'll win the battles in your reality. If you guard your mind, strengthen your mind, and feed your mind with truth and vision, you will not just survive, you will thrive. Because the mind is the battleground, but it is also the birthplace of victory. And if you can conquer your thoughts, there is nothing in this world that can stop you from stepping into the fullness of your destiny. What you see determines what you become, not just what your eyes glance at, but what your spirit focuses on, what your heart chooses to magnify, what your soul decides to lock in on. Life has a way of presenting to you what you believe about yourself. The truth is, if your vision is small, your life will remain small. If your perspective is broken, your destiny will reflect that brokenness. But if you can see bigger, if you can see greater, if you can see beyond what is in front of you, you can grow into a reality you never thought was possible. The problem with most of us is not that we don't have potential, it's that we don't have vision. We don't see ourselves correctly. We see ourselves through the lens of pain, through the lens of our past, through the lens of other people's opinions, through the lens of fear. And as long as you keep looking through those lenses, your reality will always match your vision. You cannot walk into a destiny you cannot see. You cannot seize opportunities that you are blind to. You cannot live a life that your vision cannot imagine. Let me tell you this. It is possible to have eyes and still not see. It is possible to be alive, but blind to who you really are. It is possible to be surrounded by opportunities but unable to recognize them because your focus is stuck on your limitations. How many people live their entire lives never realizing they were more than what they settled for? How many walk around seeing themselves as defeated when they were built to be victorious? How many waste years magnifying problems when they should have been magnifying possibilities? What you see is what you move toward. If all you ever see are obstacles, you'll never move forward. If all you ever see is lack, you'll never walk into abundance. If all you ever see is pain, you'll never experience healing, because your feet will always follow your focus. You become what you behold. If you behold fear, you will become paralyzed. If you behold doubt, you will become hesitant. But if you behold faith, if you behold vision, if you behold destiny, you will become unstoppable. There are people who have lived their whole lives seeing through the lens of their mistakes. They look in the mirror and don't see possibility, they only see failure. They look at their future and don't see opportunity, they only see risk. And so they shrink, they settle, they downsize their dreams to match their sight. They let their vision dictate their destiny, and because they never shift their sight, they never shift their life. But the truth is, you can't change what you don't confront, and you can't conquer what you can't see. You've got to change the picture you hold in your mind. Stop rehearsing your defeat. Stop replaying every time somebody left you. Stop magnifying every time life hurt you. Because if you keep staring at your wounds, you will never heal. If you keep magnifying your scars, you will never grow. But if you dare to see differently, if you dare to see yourself not as you are, but as you could be, if you dare to see the possibility inside of you, you can shift your entire reality. What you see determines how you respond to life. Two people can go through the exact same season and come out with two completely different outcomes. One sees it as a setback, the other sees it as a setup. One sees it as punishment, the other sees it as preparation. One sees it as the end, the other sees it as the beginning, and the difference is not in what happened, the difference is in what they saw. When you start seeing differently, you start living differently. When you see yourself as worthy, you stop tolerating disrespect. When you see yourself as capable, you start stepping into opportunities with confidence. When you see your pain as purpose, you stop running from it and start growing through it. Your reality shifts the moment your vision shifts, but the enemy knows this too. That's why the battle for your life is not just over your mind, but also over your vision. If the enemy can blind you, if he can distort what you see, if he can convince you to magnify your weakness instead of your strength, your failure instead of your potential, then he doesn't even need to chain you. You'll chain yourself, you'll shrink yourself, you'll limit yourself, because you cannot become what you cannot see. Some of you have been living with blurred vision for too long. You see your life through the eyes of rejection, so you believe you're not loved. You see through the lens of abandonment, so you expect everyone to leave. You see through the eyes of failure, so you stop trying before you even begin. And as long as that is what you see, that is what you will become. But I came to tell you today, it's time to shift your sight. It's time to put on a new lens. It's time to see yourself as chosen, as capable, as destined, as purposed. Because your vision determines your direction, and your direction determines your destiny. If you can't see beyond your past, you'll keep repeating it. If you can't see beyond your environment, you'll stay stuck in it. If you can't see beyond your pain, you'll keep reliving it. But if you dare to lift your eyes higher, if you dare to see greater, if you dare to believe there is more, you'll walk into a future you never dreamed was possible. Vision is the womb of destiny. Nothing can be birthed in your life until it's first conceived in your sight. That's why dreamers change the world, because they see what others can't. That's why people with vision build what others think is impossible, because their eyes aren't locked on the problem, their eyes are locked on the possibility. And the same is true for you. If you can see it, you can believe it. If you can believe it, you can pursue it. And if you can pursue it, you can become it. But it starts with what you see. When you wake up, what do you see? Do you see a person full of purpose, or a person stuck in pain? When you look at your future, do you see endless obstacles or endless possibilities? When you go through a storm, do you see destruction, or do you see preparation for something greater? What you see will determine what you attract. It will determine how you think, how you act, and how you live. Some of you need to stop borrowing the vision of people who cannot see your destiny. You've let other people's blindness become your limitation. They told you it couldn't be done, and you believed them. They told you you'd never make it, and you saw yourself through their eyes instead of through the eyes of purpose. But you've got to stop letting blind people tell you what you can see. You've got to stop letting small-minded people set the limits for your future. Their vision is not your vision. Their blindness is not your reality. If you're going to shift your life, you've got to shift your sight. Look beyond your pain, look beyond your present, look beyond what's in front of you. Dare to see what others cannot. Dare to envision yourself healed, whole, strong, free, blessed, and walking in purpose. Because what you see is what you'll move toward. And what you move toward is what you'll become. So I challenge you, don't just live with sight, live with vision. Don't just see what is, see what can be. Don't just look at your reality, look at your destiny. Train your eyes to see possibility. Train your spirit to see victory. Train your soul to see beyond the surface, because your life will always rise to the level of your vision. If you shift your sight, you'll shift your life. If you see yourself differently, you'll live differently. If you see yourself as more, you'll become more. What you see determines what you become. The greatest chains in life are not around your wrists. They are in your mind. The most dangerous prisons don't have iron bars. They have invisible walls built by lies, built by fear, built by experiences that told you you can't, until you believed them. Limiting beliefs are not born in one day. They are layered over time. A word here, a disappointment there, a rejection in one season, a failure in another, all of them stack up like bricks until suddenly you find yourself boxed in, living in a cage you didn't even realize you were building. And here's the painful truth. Most of us live not according to our true potential, but according to the beliefs we've accepted about ourselves. If you believe you are unworthy, you will sabotage every blessing that comes your way. If you believe you are powerless, you will shrink back from every opportunity, even when the door is wide open. If you believe you are broken beyond repair, you will never reach for healing, because you've already decided it's not for you. The lie becomes louder than the truth. The chain becomes more familiar than freedom. And before you know it, you're living not by destiny, but by limitation. But hear me, limiting beliefs don't come to you because you are weak. They come to you because you are powerful. They come to you because there's greatness inside of you. And if you ever saw yourself correctly, if you ever believed in the fullness of who you really are, nothing could stop you. That's why the lies are so loud. That's why the fear is so strong. Because the chains in your mind are designed to keep you from unlocking the greatness in your soul. Let me paint the picture. Imagine an elephant tied to a small stake in the ground. When it's young, The rope is enough to keep it from breaking free. Over time, the elephant grows, its strength multiplies, but it never tests the rope again. Why? Because it has been conditioned to believe it cannot escape. It doesn't know its own strength. It doesn't realize the power it carries. And so it stays bound, not because it cannot break free, but because it believes it cannot break free. And isn't that how many of us live, bound not by the reality of our circumstances, but by the beliefs we've accepted about them? Bound not because we don't have strength, but because we've been conditioned by rejection, by failure, by pain, to believe that freedom is not possible. The truth is, you're stronger than you think. The truth is, the rope is already broken. The truth is, the only thing holding you is the lie you've agreed to. You've got to confront the beliefs that have been shaping your life. Ask yourself, who told me I wasn't enough? Who told me I couldn't succeed? Who told me my past disqualified me from my future? Who told me my mistake canceled my destiny? Somewhere along the way, you believed it, and once you believed it, you built your life around it. But now it's time to tear down the lies and replace them with truth. Because the moment you break free from limiting beliefs, everything shifts. When you stop believing you're too broken, you open yourself up to healing. When you stop believing you're too small, you step into opportunities bigger than you've ever imagined. When you stop believing you're too late, you realize you're right on time. The belief doesn't just change your mind. It changes your posture, your actions, your decisions, your destiny. But breaking free won't be comfortable because limiting beliefs feel safe. They may keep you bound, but at least they're familiar. You've lived with them so long that freedom feels uncomfortable. You've carried them so long that the idea of dropping them feels foreign. That's why some people sabotage their own success, because the success doesn't match the belief. That's why some people run from love, because love doesn't match the belief. That's why some people destroy opportunities, because the opportunity doesn't match the belief they hold about themselves. Freedom requires a new identity. You can't step into the fullness of who you're called to be while holding onto the lies of who you used to be. You've got to decide, I will no longer be defined by my failures. I will no longer be limited by my fears. I will no longer be chained to what somebody else said about me. I will break free from these beliefs, even if I have to fight for my freedom every single day. And let me tell you, it is a fight, because limiting beliefs don't just disappear because you want them to. They will rise up again and again, whispering, you're not enough, you can't do it, you'll never make it. But you've got to fight back. You've got to answer those lies with truth. When the belief says you can't, you've got to declare I can. When the belief says you'll never recover, you've got to say, I will rise again. When the belief says you're not worthy, you've got to affirm, I am chosen. I am enough. I am destined for more. The chains are mental, but the freedom is real. And once you break through in your mind, the rest of your life will follow. You see, the battle of limiting beliefs is not just about your present. It's about your future. Every time you accept a lie, you forfeit a piece of your destiny. Every time you believe a limitation, you shrink the size of your life. But every time you reject a lie, you reclaim territory. Every time you break a chain, you expand your future. Every time you choose to believe greater, you rise higher. Don't settle for a small life when you were built for greatness. Don't live confined when you were born to expand. Don't bow to the lie when you were created to walk in truth. You are not what happened to you. You are not the mistakes you made. You are not the opinions of people who could not see your worth. You are more, and until you believe you are more, you will never live as more. So today is the day to break free, to tear off every belief that has told you you're not enough, to shatter every chain that has told you your dream is too big, to silence every voice that has told you you'll never rise. You've carried those beliefs long enough. You've bowed to those lies long enough. Now it's time to stand up, to step out, to move forward, to live free. Because the truth is, you were never really bound. The cage was an illusion. The rope was already broken. The door was always open. The only thing that needed to change was your belief. And once your belief shifts, your life shifts. Once your belief breaks free, your destiny breaks open. Once your belief changes, there is nothing in this world that can hold you back. So, stop living small. Stop shrinking your dreams to fit your fears. Stop letting lies dictate your life. You are more powerful than you think, more capable than you know, and more destined than you realize. The chains are not stronger than you. The lies are not louder than the truth. And the beliefs that once limited you don't have to define you anymore. Break free, because on the other side of those limiting beliefs is a life bigger, greater, and more fulfilling than anything you've ever known. If you want to change your life, you have to change your thinking. Renewed thinking creates renewed living. You cannot step into a new season with an old mind. You cannot walk into new blessings with old beliefs. You cannot live a new life if your thoughts are still chained to your past. Transformation doesn't begin in your hands, it begins in your head. The way you think determines the way you live. The truth is, life does not change by accident, it changes by intention. And that intention always starts in the mind. If your thoughts are defeated, your life will reflect defeat. If your thoughts are limited, your opportunities will be limited. If your thoughts are toxic, your relationships will be toxic. But when your thinking is renewed, your living will be renewed. When your mind is elevated, your life is elevated. So many people want a new life, but they don't want a new mind. They want new opportunities, but they still carry old fears. They want new relationships, but they still think with the pain of past betrayals. They want new success, but they still think with the failure of yesterday. You can't pour new wine into old wineskins. You can't build a new house on a broken foundation. Until your thoughts change, your life will stay the same. That's why cycles repeat. That's why you find yourself going around the same mountain over and over again. That's why you end up in the same kinds of relationships, the same kind of struggles, the same kind of disappointments. Because your life will always mirror your mindset. If you don't shift your thoughts, you will always repeat your reality. But here's the good news, your mind can be renewed. You don't have to think the way you used to think. You don't have to live by the same patterns you lived in before. Just because you grew up in dysfunction doesn't mean you have to keep thinking dysfunctionally. Just because you've experienced rejection doesn't mean you have to keep expecting rejection. Just because you've failed doesn't mean you have to keep thinking like a failure. You can renew your mind, and when you renew your mind, you'll renew your life. Renewal is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's like reprogramming a computer. You have to delete the viruses, uninstall the lies, and download the truth. You have to clear out the old files of fear, anger, and shame, and replace them with files of faith, strength, and vision. It's daily work. Every day you choose to replace an old thought with a new one. Every day you choose to silence the voice of fear and amplify the voice of hope. Every day you choose to renew your mind, and in time your life begins to reflect that renewal. Let me tell you, nothing in your external world will shift permanently until something in your internal world shifts first. That's why people can win the lottery and lose it all in a few years. Because their money changed, but their mindset didn't. That's why some people move to a new city, but they repeat the same struggles, because their environment changed, but their thoughts stayed the same. Real transformation doesn't start with a new address, a new relationship, or a new job. Real transformation starts with a new mind. If you want to live differently, you must think differently. If you want to rise higher, you must see higher. If you want to walk in abundance, you must think abundance. If you want to be free, you must think free. Renewed living always flows from renewed thinking. And don't think for a moment that the enemy doesn't know this. That's why the attack is always against your mind. If he can keep you stuck in old thought patterns, he can keep you from walking in new blessings. If he can keep you trapped in fear, he can keep you from stepping into faith. If he can keep you focused on your past, he can keep you from reaching your future. That's why you feel the weight of negativity pressing against you. That's why the lies come so loudly. Because if you ever renew your thinking, your whole life will rise and nothing will be able to stop you. You've got to learn how to protect the new mind you are building, because renewed thinking is fragile at first. It's like a seed. It needs care, it needs protection, it needs nourishment. If you expose it too early to the wrong voices, they'll uproot it. If you allow old influences back in, they'll choke it. That's why you can't go back to the same circles that feed your old mindset. That's why you can't spend all your time around people who drag you back into negative thinking. Your renewed mind needs an environment that supports your new life. And here's the power of renewal. When you think differently, you start speaking differently. When you speak differently, you start acting differently. When you act differently, you start attracting differently. And when you attract differently, you start living differently. The whole trajectory of your life begins to shift because your mind has shifted. Renewed thinking will show up in the way you handle adversity. Before, you might have fallen apart every time life got tough. But now, with a renewed mind, you see challenges as opportunities. You see pain as preparation. You see setbacks as setups. The situation doesn't change, your perspective does. And because your perspective is renewed, your response is renewed, and your life is renewed. Renewed thinking will also show up in the way you see yourself. No longer will you define yourself by your failures. No longer will you look in the mirror and see someone unworthy. No longer will you live under the shadow of shame. Instead, you'll see yourself as chosen, as capable, as strong, as called. And when you see yourself differently, you live differently. Renewed thinking will show up in the way you dream. Before, you dreamed small because your mind was small. Before, you limited yourself because your thoughts were limited. But now, with a renewed mind, you dare to dream bigger. You dare to believe that more is possible. You dare to stretch your faith to imagine a future beyond your current reality. Renewed thinking gives birth to renewed vision, and renewed vision gives birth to renewed living. Don't underestimate the power of one thought. One renewed thought can shift the entire trajectory of your life. One moment where you decide, I will no longer think like a victim, I will think like a victor, can change everything. One moment where you declare, I will no longer think in lack, I will think in abundance, can open doors you never thought would open. One moment where you say, I will no longer think small, I will think big, can propel you into a destiny larger than you ever imagined. Renewal is not just about thinking positive, it's about thinking truth, because positivity can fade, but truth will stand. And the truth is, you are more than what you've been through. The truth is, your best days are still ahead of you. The truth is, you are capable of rising higher, doing greater, and becoming more than your old mind ever imagined. That truth is what fuels your renewed thoughts, and those renewed thoughts will fuel your renewed life. So don't settle for old thinking. Don't settle for the lies that have kept you stuck. Don't settle for cycles that have held you down. Make the decision every day, I will renew my mind. I will align my thoughts with my destiny. I will not live in yesterday's mindset. I will think new so I can live new, because when your thinking is renewed, your living is renewed, and when your living is renewed, your destiny is renewed. Everything begins in the mind, and everything can be made new with the right renewal. So rise up, guard your thoughts. Challenge the lies, replace the old with the new, build your life from the inside out, because renewed thinking creates renewed living, and when you renew your mind, there is no limit to the life you can live.